Senna versus Prost. This wasn't a rivalry, it was a cosmic collision wrapped in carbon fiber and passive-aggressive press conferences. Senna and Prost didn't race each other, they defined each other. The hot-blooded preacher of speed versus the cold-blooded professor of the apex. It was chivalry versus strategy, divine faith versus French bureaucracy if you no longer go for a gap versus that guy tried to kill me. In 1988, McLaren builds a car so dominant, it might have lapped light itself. Senna and Prost split 15 wins out of 16, but while they're sharing victories, they're also psychologically waterboarding each other in the motorhome. 1989. Prost gets political, like literally lunching with FIA officials. Senna gets spiritual. Suzuka becomes an annual rite of combustion. Prost turns in. Senna goes full torpedo. They crash. Senna wins, then gets disqualified by the FIA. Cue conspiracy theories, feuding lawyers, and the garage air being replaced with straight-up venom. Fast forward to 1990. Suzuka again. Senna lines up on pole, but complains about the dirty side. FIA tells him to shut up. He responds by playing bumper cars at 170 miles per hour into Prost's gearbox. Championship secured. Moral high ground? Unknown. Years later, Prost holds Senna's helmet at his funeral. A rivalry forged in speed ended in tragedy. Nobody won. Except everyone, because this was F1 drama distilled into its purest, pettiest, holy form. Hamilton versus Rosberg. Two childhood pals walk into Mercedes. One leaves a 7-time world champ. The other rage quits after winning once. Welcome to the most passive-aggressive friendship breakup since Oasis. Hamilton and Rosberg go from go-karts to global domination. In 2013, Mercedes pairs them up and hands them a spaceship. 2014, they're teammates in theory, but enemies in literally every onboard radio transcript. Spa 2014. Rosberg taps Hamilton's rear wing like a guy cutting in line at Starbucks. Hamilton gets a puncture. Mercedes gets a PR migraine. Toto nearly combusts in the garage. By 2015, Lewis is deep in Rosberg's head, winning races, roasting him in interviews, probably rearranging his side of the motorhome just to troll him. But 2016. Oh, 2016. Rosberg hits monk mode, wins first 4 races, spite fuels his way through the calendar like a man possessed by petty gods. Spain, double DNF after they crash in turn 4. Austria? Rosberg ignores team orders and blocks Hamilton until both cars are practically mating at 200 miles per hour. Finale. Abu Dhabi. Hamilton slows the race down on purpose, trying to back Rosberg into the pack. Toto slaps his desk. Twitter combusts. Rosberg survives, wins the title, immediately retires. Most iconic mic drop in F1 history. Vettel versus Webber. Once upon a Red Bull garage, there was peace. Briefly. Then Webber looked at Vettel, Vettel ignored the team radio, and all hell broke loose in Milton Keynes. Mark Webber. Gritty Aussie, no-nonsense energy, allergic to PR scripts. Sebastian Vettel. Wunderkind, with a permanent smirk and 4 world titles loading. The team says equal drivers, but spoiler alert, they built a shrine for Seb somewhere behind the espresso machine. Turkey. Vettel dives inside, they crash, Red Bull leadership goes full denial mode. Racing incident. Webber's face says otherwise. Malaysia, multi-21. Webber is leading. Team says whole position. Seb says, LOL no. Seb passes anyway, wins. Weber's face on the podium is a painting in passive-aggressive oil. Vettel shrugs. I was faster. Cue, Rift, snide interviews, and Webber checking LinkedIn during race weekends. The bromance dies, only bitterness survives. Webber retires. Vettel collects titles. The internet memes the betrayal into eternal memory. Not bad for a number 2 driver. More like number 2 with a nuke in his pocket. Mansell versus Piquet. If teammates are supposed to help each other, nobody told Nigel Mansell and Nelson Piquet. These two turned the Williams garage into a televised family court case with matching helmets. Mansell, wild, mustached, emotionally feral. Piquet, ice-cold, sarcastic, and constantly trolling. Williams gives them a beast. Fastest car on the grid. But instead of beating the field, they beat each other senseless. Piquet calls Mansell a blockhead in interviews. Mansell responds by doing Mansell things, braking at the moon, overtaking through chaos, and scaring his engineers into early retirement. They split wins, sabotage setups, and implode championship chances so violently that Prost sneaks through the wreckage and takes the title. Mansell crashes hard late season. Piquet snatches the championship, immediately claims he was always faster anyway. The Williams pit wall looks like a hostage situation. Team radio was just sighing and occasional swearing. Years later, everyone remembers their battles, but the trophy? That went to whichever teammate was slightly less committed to destruction that day. Hamilton versus Alonso. McLaren 2007 was less teamwork and more celebrity deathmatch with carbon fiber. Fernando Alonso walks in as the reigning double world champ. Calm, calculating, and thinking he's got Ron Dennis wrapped around his finger. Then, plot twist, McLaren signs a British rookie named Lewis Hamilton. And immediately the rookie starts matching him, then beating him, then pissing him off in 10 different languages. Round after round, Lewis is in Alonso's mirrors. Always. Outqualifies him at Monaco. Gets preferential treatment from the British press. Fernando, fuming. Fully converting into evil Fernando mode trademark by summer break. Then comes Hungary. Alonso parks himself in the pit box during Q3 just long enough to ruin Hamilton's final lap. McLaren gets docked constructor points. FIA writes passive-aggressive emails. Ron Dennis looks like he aged 20 years in 2 weeks. The garage splits like a divorce in real time. Neither wins the title. Kimi Räikkönen snatches it out of the chaos like a quiet assassin. Alonso leaves the team. Hamilton begins his empire. It was the first time Formula One felt like a Real Housewives reunion special. Piastri versus Norris. McLaren 2023. 25 is a modern drama and slow burn. 2 mild-mannered drivers, 1 rising star, and a storm of passive-aggressive energy building in every post-race interview. Lando Norris is the team darling, meme king, fan favorite, and holder of the most podiums without a win badge. Then Oscar Piastri arrives, calm, calculated, and suspiciously fast for a rookie who looks like he just passed GCSE physics. At first it's chill, friendly banter, encouraging sound bites. But then Canada 2024 happens. Piastri blocks Norris. Norris blocks right back. McLaren execs start blinking in Morse code. Suddenly things aren't so cozy. Lando starts getting twitchy when asked about team dynamics. Oscar starts quietly beating him in qualifying. Twitter threads go full conspiracy. The vibe? Cold War with a Vodafone sponsorship. By 2025, both are title contenders, which means McLaren will now be fielding 2 championship-capable cars and 1 very exhausted HR department. The real question isn't who's faster, it's how long before one of them pulls a multi-21. Verstappen versus Perez, Red Bull 2021. 25 is less of a rivalry and more of a psychological experiment. How long can you let one guy destroy the other before the other guy snaps? Max Verstappen is the golden child, the chosen one, the CEO of Red Bull Racing, unofficially. Sergio Perez? The loyal lieutenant, the man who held up Hamilton in Abu Dhabi. But also increasingly the guy Max refuses to wait for, acknowledge, or even share a tow with. It starts cordial. Then comes 2022 Brazil. Perez needs points for P2 in the championship. Max refuses to let him through. No explanation, just a savage flex. The relationship sours fast. Strategy mistakes happen. Pit stops mysteriously slow. Max wins everything. Checo gets eaten alive by Q2 eliminations and meme accounts. By 2024, fans start chanting, "Free Checo," Even the Mexican Grand Prix turns into an awkward family gathering. Red Bull smiles through the PR pain. Verstappen isn't just the #1 driver, he's the main character. Perez is the side quest that keeps glitching. Hamilton versus Leclerc? Ferrari 2025. 2 fan favorites, 1 scarlet car. Infinite drama potential. Lewis Hamilton joins Ferrari as a 7-time world champion. Charles Leclerc? He's been Ferrari's golden boy since they could barely build a working pit stop. Now they're teammates, and everyone's pretending this won't be a disaster in slow motion. The vibes are polite. For now, but the stakes? Nuclear? Every overtake? A message. Every radio message? A subtweet with engine noise. Lewis wants to cement his legacy with a title in red. Charles wants to not be eclipsed by one of the greatest ever. By round 3, Charles complains about strategy. By round 6, Lewis is confused about team orders. By round 10, the gloves come off. Ferrari claims everything's fine. Meanwhile, the Tifosi are lighting candles, summoning Enzo's ghost for peace. If the car's fast enough to win, this could be the most beautiful disaster in Italian motorsport since 2004. Schumacher versus Barrichello? Michael Schumacher didn't have teammates. He had supporting actors in a German-engineered Broadway production where he always got the lead. Rubens Barrichello signed with Ferrari thinking he'd finally get a title-worthy car. Technically, he did. Spiritually, he was issued a contract to suffer. His job? Win when allowed. Defend Michael always. And maybe get to hold a trophy if Michael didn't feel like it. 2002. Austrian GP. The moment that broke motorsport decency and lit 1,000 rage blogs. Barrichello is leading. He deserves the win. Then final lap radio order lets Schumacher pass. And he does. Slows down at the finish line. Schumacher takes it. Booed on the podium, even gives Rubens the trophy out of sheer awkwardness. Classic, I'm not the villain if I gift the crown I just stole energy. Fans combust, commentators scream. The FIA bans team orders the next year, but Rubens? He just sighs, smiles through interviews, and keeps finishing P2. For years, this wasn't a rivalry, it was a Shakespearean tragedy where Rubens knew the ending, and kept showing up for rehearsals anyway. Hill versus Villeneuve. Williams in 1996 had the best car, the worst vibes, and a father-son drama written by Netflix before streaming existed. Damon Hill, veteran, stoic, trying to finally escape his only one because of the car narrative. Jacques Villeneuve, rookie, F1 royalty, son of the late legend, and carrying more hype than a PlayStation 5 drop. The season starts off civil, but every race tightens the screws. Villeneuve isn't just fast, he's Hill's equal, sometimes faster. And Hill, desperately trying to prove he's not a placeholder with good hair. The whole season turns into a weirdly polite cage fight. Final round, Hill wins the title. Finally, a real one. But Williams doesn't renew his contract. Villeneuve gets full backing in '97. Hill gets dumped right after the championship party. Champagne in one hand, pink slip in the other. Cold. The rivalry never exploded. But it hummed with that smile now, backstab later energy that only Williams in the '90s could manufacture. Ricciardo versus Verstappen. Red Bull 2016. 2018. 2 teammates, 1 golden future. And 1 increasingly uncomfortable Australian smile. Daniel Ricciardo was the king of late breaks and post-race shoeies. Charismatic, fast, media darling. But then Max Verstappen showed up. Mid-season as a teenager and immediately wins his first race. Daniel blinks, so do the strategists. By 2017, Max is the new face. Ricciardo still pulls epic moves, see Baku, China, literal dive bombs from orbit. But the energy? Off. Strategy calls? Sus. Upgrades? Always landing on Max's car first. Daniel jokes about it in interviews, except the jokes start sounding less jokey. Then comes Azerbaijan 2018. Both drivers race hard, too hard. They're wheel to wheel for laps. Eventually, Ricciardo slams into the back of Verstappen at 200 miles per hour, double DNF. Christian Horner looks like he's about to age into a skeleton on live TV. Red Bull blames both, but behind closed doors? Ricciardo's decision is made. He ghosts Red Bull for Renault like a man escaping a toxic relationship with nothing but a bag of snacks and a middle finger. Max stays, the throne is his. Ricciardo never really gets that power seat again. Fittipaldi versus Peterson. Lotus 1973 was a fever dream. Fast car, 2 elite drivers, one about to become champion. The other, a tragic figure in the wrong narrative. Emerson Fittipaldi was the chosen one. World champ in waiting, ultra calm, smooth as silk. Ronnie Peterson? The fan favorite Swede with lightning reflexes and zero political instincts. They were teammates, but it was clear. Lotus backed Fittipaldi. Peterson, given the scraps. Still outqualified him, outraced him, politely. Like a golden retriever outpacing a Tesla and then apologizing for it. The unspoken rule? Ronnie wasn't supposed to win. Team orders floated like ghosts in the garage. Ronnie obeyed. Every time. Emerson gets the title, Ronnie gets the applause, but no crown. And the emotional damage? Permanent. He'd never get a car that good again. They weren't enemies, they were friends. But in F1, sometimes the guy who follows the rules loses the legacy. Alonso versus Raikkonen. Ferrari 2014. 2 world champions walk into the same team, and somehow nothing explodes. Out loud. Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen had nothing in common. One was a Machiavellian strategist with a chip on both shoulders. The other was Kimi. Just Kimi. Iceman. Showed up, drove, left, on paper? A dream pairing in practice? Alonso obliterated him. Qualifying, race pace. Political maneuvering, Kimi barely stood a chance. No sabotage, no team orders. Just Fernando quietly erasing his teammate over 19 races while Kimi looked like he was thinking about lunch. There was no shouting, just grim silence. Alonso finished 6th in the championship. Kimi, 12th, 12th. This rivalry wasn't spicy, it was surgical. A public dissection with no anesthesia. And no one talked about it because Kimi doesn't do drama, and Alonso already had 6 other feuds that season. Gasly versus Ocon. 2 Frenchmen, 1 junior team pipeline, and a backstory juicier than a Netflix docuseries produced by actual enemies. Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon grew up racing each other since diaper age. Close friends until karting politics, talent clashes, and probably some deeply unshared trauma tore them apart. By the time they hit F1, their friendship had gone full Voldemort. Not spoken of, not acknowledged, just glared at across press conferences. Fast forward to Alpine 2023. The French government practically forces them into the same garage for PR reasons. 2 French talents, 1 French team, unity. What could go wrong? Everything. On track they race like it's personal. Every overtake is a message. Every missed braking point is a statement of contempt wrapped in carbon. Baku? Collide. Hungary? Nearly collide. Zandvoort? Collide again. The garage is quieter than a courtroom before a guilty verdict. The team says, "We've addressed it internally." What they meant was, "We've installed separate coffee machines." Alpine loses points. The vibe loses chill. France loses patience. The only thing stopping this from being a full soap opera is that it already is. Hamilton versus Button. In 2010, McLaren signs 2 British champions. It was supposed to be a dream team. Instead, it was British bake-off with turbochargers and layered passive aggression. Jenson Button, smooth, refined, a strategy savant. Lewis Hamilton, explosive, faster, chaos in a carbon shell. Fans thought Jenson would get wrecked. Turns out he didn't. Jenson wins on pure strategy genius. Lewis wins on pure pace. The balance? Weird, subtle, stressful. Then came Canada 2011. Button starts last, gets 6 pit stops, makes contact with Hamilton, oops, and still wins. It's the most iconic accidental sabotage in F1 history. No screaming, no broken garage doors, just icy interviews and long silences at the debrief. For 3 seasons, they orbit each other like 2 planets ready to collide, but never quite doing it. McLaren slowly declines. Button gets the last laugh. Hamilton jumps ship and builds an empire at Mercedes. It was never explosive, but it was exhaustingly British in its tension. Like 2 knights dueling with a passive tone of voice. Lauda versus Prost McLaren, 1984. 1 team, 2 legends. And no one expects the quieter one to win. Niki Lauda returns from retirement with half his face, full wisdom, and 0 time for BS. Alain Prost is the young professor, calm, clean, methodical. Together they make McLaren unstoppable. On paper, a dream pairing. In reality, a low-key gladiator match with calculators. Lauda doesn't out-qualify Prost, not once. But he wins the war on Sundays. Racecraft, consistency, political juju. He edges Prost for the title by half a point. Yes, half a point. Prost is shook. Outpaced by a man with literal burn scars and metaphorical ice in his veins, Lauda retires again. Title in hand, drops mic, Prost stays, becomes the legend, but never quite lets go of that half-point scar. It's the rivalry that proved speed isn't always the fastest way to win.